very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society.
You're in violation of secure communication procedures, Commodore.
So we just went ahead and fixed the glitch.
There is no America. There is no democracy.
Our fifth objective, a new world order.
There are no nations. There are no peoples. There are no Russians. There are no Arabs. There are no third worlds. There is no West.
Right-wing conspiracy.
What do you call it when the assassins accuse the assassin?
A new world order.
Thank you for plugging in to the Stones Unturned podcast.
Well, just a second there, Professor. We fixed the glitch.
I'm your host, Professor Thomas Henry Horan.
He reads everything.
Hello there, my good people. I greet you in the name of all that is holy. It is official. I have come back from you-know-who-mart. This is now officially in the open and free marketplace. This is now officially worth less than this. This costs more than $1 per roll now, just so you know. So the shock doesn't... I swear on my baby mama's grave. This is officially, it's not a joke anymore. This is worth less than this. I bring it up because it's all about the money. This whole Super El Nino thing has really steamed my clams. I'm sick of hearing Super El Ninos, super duper El Ninos, super bomb, cyclone, bomb, nor'easter, super duper. I'm sick of it. This whole bullshit started at the end of the 90s because there was this freak, like the 90s was like 8 years of mostly El Nino, which up until then had been rare. El Nino had been rare. They had noticed it in the 70s. They noticed it seemed to have an impact on the jet stream in the 70s. Remember that shitstorm of 78? Oh my God, you remember? Wow, I should not have brought it up. And then so this happens again in the 90s. Remember, it was the butterfly effect, blah, 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 blah. So that got this guy going who had this theory about global warming that I'll get to in a minute. So this was the thing. Boom, look, El Nino is like permanent now, okay? That was the whole headline. Ever since then, it has been La Nina, La Nina, La Nina, La Nina. Look at this. And this last La Nina was supposed to come to an end last summer and be replaced by El Nino this past fall and winter. And look at this. It still hasn't come to an end yet, let alone transition to El Nino. Look at this. I only bring it up because this Super El Nino, in order to explain this, look at this. It either has to be 52 degrees above quote unquote normal, or they got to do something about this. They have to do something about this. Scientists change how El Nino is labeled to keep up with spike in temperature. They are changing the definition of El Nino to explain this. They are changing the definition of resurrection in the spirit to explain this. It's all about the money. And this is all about the money. It's not about future money. It's not about them trying to pass new taxes. It's not about trying to change businesses' minds and get on board. It's not about that at all. That battle was won a long time ago. Here's the problem. So here it is. Wave after wave, February 1999. This piece specifically addresses how the patterns of larger, more frequent, and more damaging extreme weather events. Now, this is 25 years ago. Mentioning El Nino and Hurricane Georges align with what scientists studying global warming had predicted. Remember, since then, for 25 years, it has been La Nina, La Nina, La Nina, with the occasional Nino sneeze. That's not aligned with what global warming had predicted. It would be permanent El Nino. That did not happen. The Heat is On, November 1999. Updated a couple months later. Part of a broader special report on the climate chaos of the late 90s, this article discusses the record-breaking temperatures of 98 and the scientific consensus regarding the double whammy of natural cycles and greenhouse gas emissions, right? This was the end of the world 25 years ago. It has been La Nina, La Nina, La Nina, La Nina, La Nina, La Nina, La Nina. How much bigger has the South Polar ice cap grown? El Nino or Global Warming, 2002. This article written by Andrew C. Revkin explores how the 2002 El Nino was making it difficult for researchers to distinguish between natural Pacific oscillations and a permanent shift in climate patterns. Well, did they mention that 25 years of La Nina, La Nina, La Nina? No, they have not. The 90 to 95 El Nino oscillation event, longest on record. This is one of the most famous papers from that decade. The authors analyzed the 113-year historical record and found that the persistent El Nino conditions from 1995 are statistically impossible under natural conditions. Well, what about the 25 years of La Nina? Are those statistically possible under natural conditions? That's why this has to be a super El Nino. But it's not just about one pedantic asshole arguing against a sea of pedantic assholes. It's not about that at all. It's not about choking on my own rage. It's not about an old man talking about all the doomsdays he's already lived through. It's not about that, ladies and gentlemen. Please don't misunderstand me. Please. It is all about the money. It is all about the money. Increased El Nino frequency in a climate model forced by future greenhouse warming. Well, what about decreased El Nino frequency and ram pedal to the metal, increased La Nina frequency? I'll tell you what, Professor. We're going to change the definition of El Nino. That's what. It's all about the money. They can't admit I'm right because it's all about the money. El Nino like climate change and a model with increased atmospheric CO2 concentrations. Well, they're screaming bloody murder. There's nothing left but CO2. La Nina, 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 La Nina. Scientists change how El Nino is labeled. They're going to change the definition of El Nino. This all goes back to this guy. This guy said, remember when it was global cooling? Remember the documentary? There was some special. The glaciers were advancing again, and the Sahara had gotten bigger. Remember? Do you know the Sahara has shrunk by 25% over the last 25 years, right? Have they told you that? No. No, they have not. He was talking about how, and remember those terrible droughts and those terrible famines. Remember that. This guy said this was caused by burning sulfurous fossil fuels. Between the carbon and most especially the sulfur dioxide was blocking heat from the sun and making it cold and triggering a new ice age. So we stopped burning sulfur, and that also cured the terrible acid rain problem, right? Well, if the earth has gotten warmer, then it's because we've stopped burning sulfur, and the easiest way to stop global warming would be to go back to burning some regulated amounts of sulfur, right? And just eat the acid fucking rain, right? The quick solution, right? Either you close the Strait of Hormuz or you start burning sulfur. Not that there's a coincidence there in the slightest. You can smell, go outside, if the wind's out of the south, you can smell Venezuela. If you smell rotten eggs, that's Venezuela. It's Venezuela crude. This is the heaviest, sourest crude. It is garbage. It is the swag of crude. But if you want to stop global warming in the near term, see, another thing that has happened is volcanoes have stopped erupting lately, and that means there's a lot less sulfur dioxide. Instead of bragging about how, see, we know how to control the weather, they don't want to mention that. There's a reason for that. It's called money, money. Okay? Stephen Schneider was one who he was a peer reviewer who wholeheartedly agreed with the global cooling because of aerosol pollution theory. He wholeheartedly agreed. Within a few years, Schneider realized his calculations had underestimated the warming power of CO2. La Nina, La Nina, La Nina, La Nina, La Nina, La Nina, La Nina. La Nina, La Nina, La Nina, la 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 la. But it's not about me and my ego. Oh, it is all about the money. There was the 1940s were cold as fuck. Cold as fuck. There had been the mini ice age after one Krakatoa. And remember, volcanoes were going off in your living room. Some of us may be too young to remember. Some of us may be too old to remember. But remember when volcanoes were going off in your neighbor's living room? Back in the 70s, there were volcanoes everywhere. There was a lot. And like the Battle of the Bulge, it was so cold and so snowy. And those Russian winters, those were the coldest winters in 150 years. Volcanic eruptions, plus the fossil fuels with a high sulfur content. I think they were absolutely right. I think that putting a stop to burning sulfur is what caused global warming. I think they were 100% right. But they hate it when I agree with them. They hate it when I agree with them. I had a professor who showed us the film. It's a brilliant class. He showed us the film and some other stuff. He showed us the film Triumph of the Will. And he showed what the messages are. Like he said, by the time this movie's over, you feel like Germany won the First World War. And he said when the film had come out, Hitler had reversed a lot of the negative outcomes of the First World War. So this is a propaganda film to sell the nation on the idea. And he's like, and in this scene, you see Adolf Hitler raise the dead, these honored dead from World War I. It's not just that they're on his side. He raises them from the dead. He shows all this stuff. So I wrote a paper and to give my little presentation about Al Gore's little masterpiece, An Inconvenient Truth. And for example, there's a scene where Al Gore is using a mouse to run the tape back and forth, show how these hurricanes work. And I said, oh, look, Al Gore controls the weather. And my professor got red-faced mad. And I was just like, I learned this from you. Aren't you proud of me? I didn't do it to be a smart ass. I thought he would at least give a sardonic smile. He was so mad. And there was another class where I wrote a paper. This professor is really cool. And he discovered in a manuscript, lecture notes by a student from the 1100s. And it said the professor, these are apparently lecture notes in the margins of his textbook. And apparently the professor is saying, as every educated person knows, the earth is round and rotates on an axis and revolves around the sun along with the other planets. Well, I wrote a paper about the Middle Ages. It was about the spice trade and supply side economics. That a huge glut of spices had arrived in Europe in the 12th century, and the price simultaneously collapsed. And I said, so you literally have, and I found these accounts and chronicles and letters and things, and there was and then from the 14th century, it's talked about how this glut of spices, these merchants were out on the street selling dime bags. These spices were traded primarily for their pharmacological properties. And they're having to sell dime bags on the street to retail customers. Hey, man, you want to buy some nutmeg? I got this good shit. Literally. And people get a taste for it. It's not enough to get off in most cases. But like the capsaicin is a pain reliever, and nutmeg is a pick-me-up even in small doses. It is. It really is. And so they get a taste for it, and demand skyrockets. And this leads to this trade war with the Ottoman Empire, and now they have to look west to try to get east. And he was so mad about that paper. And it was all about supply side economics. A glut, supply had led to demand. And he got so mad. He got so mad. It was all about the money, see? Right. There was a cooling. There was a killing frost all the way down into Princeton, Indiana. One year, Orville Redenbacher's empire was almost wiped out before it really got big. This was in 1963. I think he was the guy who didn't panic or whatever, and he came out of this because the popcorn crop had been frostbit, killing frost all the way down into Princeton, Indiana, the heart of popcorn country. They grow popcorn down there, boy, like nobody's business. He was a real farmer, very educated farmer. That old generation of educated farmers, and did develop popcorn in a perfect location. It is. You grow marvelous popcorn and sweet corn, and you can make sour mash whiskey. Apropos of nothing. My point is, killing frost, June the 22nd, the first day of summer, 1963, I think, right before I was born. There was a killing frost that went all the way down into southern Indiana. The first satellite images of the Arctic in the early 70s showed an increase in snow and ice cover, which looked like the start of a trend. The Milankovitch cycles. In 76, a major paper titled Pacemaker of the Ice Ages proved that Earth's orbit naturally triggers ice ages every 100,000 years. What do you know about that? But then we get this. And this also happened at the same time. Here's the thing. The reason this shit became popularized by the man was because, and these were projects I had a shot at working on in the 80s, although they'd already, like, these weren't being taken seriously. I'm going to show Walter some things that we'll talk about. Long story short, I saw proposals to do this crap, like try to control the jet stream and all this other shit. So these were ideas in the air. And that meant that there was a lot of money coming from DARPA. And when I was at the U of I, all the money came from DARPA. All the money was coming from DARPA. So there was an incentive to publish these articles in the popular media to convince decision makers and funders to release grant monies to further study these intriguing scientific investigations. it may be possible to control the weather by various means. Money gets spent, more papers get written and published. It's all about the money. It's always been about the money. Most important paper, 1981, Monthly Weather Review, linking El Nino to the jet stream. This was after the mother of all fucking blizzards in 78. It isn't just about research or controlling the weather. It's about publishing articles to convince taxpayer voters and their representatives and other decision makers and funders that this bullshit is real. That happens. Believe me. Believe me. That's what it was all about. My mentor taught me all about it, and he was pretty good at it. He's pretty good at it. I'm going to tell Walter about it, or some of it. But, yeah. Believe me, I know. I have known ever since they came out with this bullshit. I would tell my friends, I know what's going on here. I know what's going on here. I know. These are advertorials. For one thing, there aren't really any scientific articles that back up any of these alarmist headlines. There really aren't. Not really. Just publicists. Now, why would they waste money on that if they didn't really believe in it? It's not the climate scientists that are screaming about this. It's publicists that are screaming about it. There were a lot of these guys worked on JASON, the elite group of independent scientists that advises the Pentagon on advanced technology. My mentor was a member of JASON. He was Los Alamos in NASA. I'm not kidding. He was kind of like Buckminster Fuller. He was a nerdy Navy guy. They were all ex-military but me. There was an assumption I was going to go ROTC. And when I was younger, I would go junior ROTC and go Navy probably, and nuclear physics probably, because that would be either nuclear physics, so nuclear reactors, or another route would be like these acoustic lasers, which would have to do with sonar, which would have to do with communications of all kinds of communications with the submarines, that was the most secret shit with submarines. That was the most secret shit. That was the expectation. I didn't go that route. I wasn't the only one. And, but early on, okay, I got to see shit. Do you want to work on this? You want to work on this? And being told, here's what you do, son. You come up with a proposal or an experiment. You do a garage experiment. And if you can convince Uncle Sucker to write a check, we'll help you spend it. We give you lab facilities and we hire staff. It's a dog-eat-dog competitive world. Just because you have a diploma doesn't mean they give you a lab. They touch on this on the Big Bang Theory. There's a couple of episodes where they touch on this. The money. It's all about bringing in the grant money. And like at Caltech, it's not just about government money. It's about private money. At U of I, it was all about DARPA and defense contractors. That's where all the money was coming from for everything. Everything. Linked to MIT. I was supposed to go, you don't care. How much money is currently invested in climate change? $20 to $30 trillion. If climate change, if there's another La Nina this year, climate change is going to cost the global economy $20 trillion. It's going to cost $20 trillion. It's not funny. It's not funny. It's either laugh or cry. It's either going to cost 30 trillion of these it's going to make the dot-com bubble look like the fucking 1929. I mean, $30 trillion, $20 to $30 trillion will go poofy by. So what? Remember this. The hypothetical great cooling would create, even if people just believed it. If people find out that this is worth less than this, everybody's ass is grass. You're all getting fucked. We're all getting fucked. It's not funny. It's crazy. It's insane. I asked AI, what would the consequences of such a thing be? Now, if you believe AI, if this 25-year La Nina cycle has effectively neutralized the warming trend of the last few decades, we wouldn't just see a pause in spending, we would see the collapse of the largest emerging financial structures in history. Breakdown of the capital involved. The carbon credit and offset market, $2 trillion plus. The green bond market, $3.5 trillion. Stranded assets and infrastructure, $5 trillion plus. The global retooling, over $5 trillion at this point. Total financial disturbance. Disturbed capital exceed $15 to $20 trillion, 20% of the entire global GDP. That's what's at stake if they admit. And if that current in the Atlantic is collapsing and a new ice age really is coming, if that guy was right, if that guy was right, are they going to dig him up and give him a Nobel Peace fucking Prize? Have you ever once in your life, ever, you can go on YouTube, what's that, Periscope Films, where he has all the archived films? That place, I could spend a lifetime watching that shit. It's fascinating. Have you ever once heard a scientist admit they were this wrong about anything? If you put $30 trillion on top of that, no one's going to admit jack shit. What happened to the Sumerians? One day a check bounced at the Federal Reserve granary and they were never the same. And their replacement, the Assyrians, more or less, there's a, right? They kind of came and went there for a minute. They replace it with a metal-backed money. Metal-backed paper money, which is, don't get me wrong. My favorite color. Green is my favorite color. Did I tell you I was Irish? Half Irish, half Jewish. That's a dangerous combination. An Irish lawyer and a Jewish lawyer walk into a courtroom. Guess who won? The lawyers. That's what I was taught. The accountant's riddle is how much is 2 plus 2? Answer, how much do you want it to be? The law of the lawyers is the lawyers always win. Right? A lawyer always wins. And they always get paid. The lawyers always win. Why did I bring this up? The insurance industry, for example, has been charging people premiums based on projections of continuing horrible catastrophes. If there are no hurricanes this year in Florida, the insurance companies may have to pay rebates on premiums. Did you know? Have you ever seen... Head for the hills right now. If the insurance companies... Have you ever seen an insurance company issue a refund on a premium? If they have to issue it. It would be better. It was better for Sodom and Gomorrah than it will be for Wall Street in that day. What will happen to the news? What will happen to some of these people if a scientist gets up and says, you know what, I think maybe we were wrong? What would happen if Neil deGrasse Tyson admitted he was wrong? Imagine the chaos. Oh, shit. All of a sudden, the Strait of Hormuz might be worth a pretty penny. Pretty penny. What is going to happen? If the world doesn't come to an end, the world really will come to an end. That's why. This was my point. I'm sorry. My point was this. This is why they have to call it a super El Nino, because if it's not a super El Nino, the whole fucking thing collapses. Have you noticed how many solar panels there are across the street from your house? They're everywhere. They're everywhere. They're everywhere. Solar panels and wind farms are everywhere. Gonna start locking babies in incubators and plugging them in. Red pill, blue pill. This is the green suppository, okay? See that on the back? You know who invented that, don't you? You know who invented that, don't you? What's his name? I don't have a fin. Oh, this guy. He's everywhere. This guy's everywhere. He invented this. He took this and put this on the back of it. I want you to take a really good look at that emblem right there. That eagle. Eagle has got faces in each paw. Oh, I'm running out of CO2. And this, you've seen this. I know, I don't have to show you this. Take a look at this sometime. There's a pattern there that you will recognize. You will recognize this pattern. It is an old and familiar logo. You will recognize it. I'm going to show you. And here's somebody, okay? Have you ever heard a scientist admit they were wrong? Here's the point. Remember when the resurrection of Jesus was the end of the world? Remember that? When I mean the world, I mean Rome. This is ancient Rome, okay? You don't... How the... Ah, shit. Let me use this. You can see that, right? Okay. Let me zoom in. If I can. Monitor 2. Can I zoom that in? There it is. Okay. Okay. This is Rome. This is downtown Rome. This used to be the bottom of a ice age glacial lake. And it ruptured its natural dam and the lake drained. And all drained away to the south. This river snakes its way. The Tiber River snakes its way south to Ostia, a port that was usually controlled by the Phoenicians. But Rome was far enough upriver, the Phoenicians just couldn't drag their warships up here and capture this place. And there's this island that it's in the way. The river was shallow enough here back in those days that Romans hadn't dredged it that they could wade out to the stranded Phoenician ships and attack them from land. The Roman Navy invented the Marines. Well, the Roman Navy they did not do shit. They would just grab a hold of an enemy ship and pull up alongside, and then the infantry would defeat the Navy. The infantry would defeat the sailors. That was your idea of a naval victory. And they won naval victory after naval victory. So the blue stuff is the old stuff. By old stuff, I mean going back to Etruscan times. Or just after Etruscan times. The Etruscans were down here in the light purple, down here. And in fact, this red line, that was known as the Via Toscana. the Tuscan Highway, the Tuscan Road. This was the Tuscan Road. This is where the Etruscans camped. This is where the this is where the guys with the brass knuckles camped, was on the other side of the river. But the Etruscans take over, and they teach these guys how to count to 10 and wipe their asses and then wash their hands, and they teach them some civilization. And they make them build a sewer system. And it comes out down here south of the Palatine Hill. The sewer system comes out down here. This is where the sewer comes out. This becomes Caesar's gardens, Caesar's arbors, orchards, because it's just rich in effluvium. Okay? This becomes the Roman palace of the Caesars right here, the southeast corner of the old city. Okay? The pink part is Wall Street. This is very old. And when the Etruscans make them drain all of this down here into the Cloaca Magnum, the asshole of Rome, is down here where Caesar's gardens were. It's the asshole of Rome. They drain all of this. This opens up this area here, which becomes the cattle market, the Forum Boavum, the cattle market. This was the old market up here, and this becomes the Wall Street. This becomes I'm showing you first century Rome. This is the Rome of Jesus and Paul. After this is, you're getting into Caligula and Nero. This is the Rome of Caligula and Nero. The green stuff is the republic that's established. See how far they are uphill from the Etruscan neighborhood. They're way up here in the north. This is the Temple of Jupiter, Optimus Maximus. And this is the Senate we'd meet in this neighborhood here. This used to be the shore of the lake at one time, apparently, or something like that. The blue stuff, these are the oldest temples down in this mud flat. After the Etruscans drain the mud flat, they build this triangle of blue temples. The Temple of Castor and Pollux, who are twins, don't forget that. Yes, they are reminiscent of Romulus and Remus, don't forget that. The Castor and Pollux are the keepers of the scales. They are the Bureau of Standard Weights and Measures, and this includes money. That's the Temple of Castor and Pollux. The Temple of Vesta is where the common folk keep their savings, and they make limited agricultural loans. This is safeguarded by the Vestal Virgins, who are nuns who run the Bank of Vesta. This is the farmers and cattlemen's merchant, get it, of Rome, Bank of Rome. This is heavily regulated, as it should be. That's the Temple of Vesta. At the foot of the Capitoline is the old Temple of Saturn. This is the official temple state bank of the New Roman SPQR Incorporated. The New Roman Republic Incorporated. And these, like the Rostra, like the Latin tribes or whatever, this is their Acropolis. And the Temple of Castor and Pollux borders Greek town. You have Greeks and Etruscans, and somehow in the middle of the night, this place just fills up with what the Romans are going to call Jews. Who are these fucking people? Who are these Etruscans? Who are these Greeks and for centuries, the Romans continue to use Etruscan in their official legal documents and court proceedings and financial accounting. They use, even Latin, which is the classical Latin that you've learned, which is really Greek spoken with a Latin vocabulary. It's still, all the important words are Etruscan. There were like 5 Etruscans. And here's the bizarre thing. Let me finish. I should finish. I confuse people. The pink area, that becomes Wall Street. This becomes a booming port all the way up the river from Ostia. It's safe. See, for a long time, the Phoenicians could not drag their boats up here. And but if you're a Roman smuggler, if you're a Latin smuggler, if you're an Etruscan smuggler, you can't drag 30 tons of copper up here either. But you could drag 75 pounds of bronze or 75 pounds of frankincense. Frankincense makes it swing, baby. Without it don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing, and frankincense is the thing that makes it swing. I'm not kidding. That establishes this is the syndicate will now come to order. Literally, in this cosmos here in the room, the syndicate will now come to order. That's what frankincense is for. The courts are on the north side. Your patron was supposed to argue your case against his patron in front of a senior patron who will arbitrate fairly according to the law. This becomes the old money district on the north side of what the fuck is it called? Well, this is the Via Sacra. This is the Via Sacra, where the triumphs are held. And this passes in front, Trajan's new forum. This is all about the new money in international markets. The Forum Bovarium is still where they sell cattle. This leather is still a valuable export. We're going to talk about the shift from antelope skin to cow skin and the seismic impact that has on global history. It happens to coincide with a mass die-off in the north. Or trigger one. We'll get to that. I'm sorry. I need more sleep. The temple, I just can't believe. I just can't believe. The chutzpah. The chutzpah. My point was this. Okay, so you get, the triangle goes like this. The Senate, well, it goes like this. The Senate goes right down to the money markets and right across the bridge to the Etruscan neighborhood, which overnight has turned into the Jewish neighborhood that nobody ever knew was there. And they get kicked out in 139 BC, but they don't go anywhere. What they are is they're banished across the river. They all have to go across the river. Apparently, they were already living north of the river at the Temple of Castor and Pollux. And we know that the richest man in the world was the oligarch. And we know that would be his office for his bank, would be the Temple of Castor and Pollux. That would be the Roman office of the Leontopolis Bank outside of Alexandria, Egypt. And the people who live in that neighborhood are called Chaldeans, and they are booted across the river down into the Trastevere. You can't see my fingers. It has been a minute. It has been a minute. It is all about the money. It's all about the money. It's all about the money. Okay? They get booted out of this neighborhood across the river down in here, and now this is a Jewish neighborhood permanently. And they migrate back up north because this is where all the money is. And in the 1500s, the Pope will declare this the Jewish quarter, and he will build walls to protect them from the mafia. This is all this down in here. This is the docks. This is all docks down in here for the most part. These are massive warehouses. These are massive warehouses. Okay, massive warehouses down here on the left bank of the Tiber. In the first century, you see what's up here in the north. The Senate, you walk 200 meters to the Forum Romanum, the old money markets. This is the Wall Street. This is the Beverly Hills. Then you go down in the Forum Boarum. This is the down and dirty. This is the commodities markets, the slave markets. This is the grain and beef, the leather markets, the cattle markets. This is where the world goes round. But if you turn to the left and start to go up and you're going to mount the Capitoline, you pay your tax at the Temple of Saturn, which is the state treasury and reserve bank. That famous speech is, Brutus and Mark Antony, I come to praise, not to bury Caesar, but not to praise Caesar, but to bury him, or whatever. The rostra is right there. That's the rostra. You speak down into the city, down into the forum, down into the markets. This used to be the shore of the lake. A long time ago, this was the shore of the lake. These people couldn't wipe their own asses until the Etruscans showed up. That's what the Etruscans do for them. What the Romans do for everybody else, the Etruscans did for them. The other thing was this language, this Etruscan language. There is a crackpot theory that it is related to Hebrew, that it is a Semitic language. So I'm asking the AI, is it possible that this could be a pidgin used exclusively for business and government purposes? And that's all it ever was. And the AI said, well, most of the inscriptions have to do with setting the boundaries of land, like it's inheritance. It's like a last will and testament. That's all it is. Other than that, we don't know, And it said something about, it's like trying to decipher the entire English language from a bunch of caution, wet floor signs. And I thought that was the funniest fucking thing I've ever heard. Because that would be true. Alien archaeologists, when we go extinct, every building will have these caution wet floor signs, and they'll find identical totems, identical stelae that have what look like the same thing in a totally different language, and they won't know, well, is it a totally different language? You're trying to decipher the entire English language from looking at, because they're everywhere. They mean something. What do they mean? And if you did decipher it, what would it tell you? Caution wet floor. Because caution is not a verb. Caution is a noun. There's an implied caution. An implied verb, have caution. Exhibit caution. I thought that was hilarious. They got off another good one the other day. Schrodinger's Jesus. They got off that. They came up with Schrodinger's Jesus. But the thing about it is, the Etruscans coincide with Hezekiah. Tarquin the First is the Hezekiah of Rome. He brings the business model to Rome and imposes it on them and tells them, if you don't learn to speak this language by tomorrow morning, I'm going to cut your dicks off. And I mean it. Watch. And he means it. And they do. They learn. They learn like that. They don't forget. They don't forget that language for a long time. It's crazy. It's crazy. And all of a sudden, these Etruscans they evaporate into thin air, and then they condense into a dew. A sweet, pure crystalline dew known as the Jews. They must be Etruscans. But there's one crackpot theory that says Etruscan looks like it might be Hebrew. But there just aren't any inscriptions to go by. In any case, the yellow stuff, this is Caesarean Enterprises Incorporated, Amalgamated, Limited. This is Egypt. This is the shadow company that runs Egypt. The yellow, do you see the yellow? This is the shadow corporation in fucking Rome. Oh, God. If that's what this is that what this is? This is the shadow company because it's conveniently located next to the Etruscan Jewish quarter. And this is exactly what it looks like. The Forum of Nerva is the world's first strip mall, complete with a phony facade of columns that actually stick out from the building and don't hold anything up. It's a phony facade of columns to make it look real. This was the K Street. They intentionally built this here. They hate the traffic. They kept running like cattle and sheep right underneath Caesar's Palace. So they built this forum area. This becomes K Street. This is the link between Caesar Incorporated and the rest of the Roman Empire. This becomes lobbyist headquarters. This is Yuppie Row. The bookstores are here. I forgot to ask, did the Romans have coffee? Did the Romans have coffee? Have coffee. They definitely had tapas bars, not topless. Well, they had them. Those were down in the ethnic corridor. That's where you find the topless bars. That's where you find the bear baiting, the dog fighting, the cockfighting, the gambling. That's all down in here in the ethnic corridor. You get all the working class stuff down here in the cattle market. You get all the Wall Street crowd is on the north side of the Sacred Way. They're very close together. They all live together. You would see your patron in the street every day. But you'll notice how close Egypt Incorporated is to the back door to the Trastevere. And the reason they built this forum, this strip mall, with all it had, you could buy spices, you could buy house trained slaves, you could buy luxury slaves. This is where the yuppies would meet and greet. This is where the nouveau professional business class hung out. Astrologers, bookstores, you name it. This was K Street. This was that neighborhood. Comet Ping Pong, the original location of Comet Ping Pong was in the Forum of Nerva. Okay? This was done to provide a back door to the Trastevere, to the Jewish neighborhood. They would, in the mornings, they woke up, they walked across the bridge, walked a couple 100 meters to their shops and temples and banks, and did their business all over Rome. The Senate, the money, the Jews. And where's the money? It's between the Senate and the Jews. They get to count it and keep track of it. They leave it there, and when they go home at night, is that, go, we cut your dicks off. And the Caesars are laundering money through here. What bank is he using? He can't use the Temple of Saturn because that's the national treasure, and he claims that if there's any money coming from Egypt that passes through the hands of the national treasury, the board of directors will grab it. It can't be Castor and Pollux. Is it Vesta? It's right across the street from the Forum of Nerva. It's right in that neighborhood. I argue that this courtyard and this building at the north end of the courtyard, I argue this was the local branch office of the underground secret, totally illegal. Under Jewish law, the temple at Leontopolis was illegal, but that was the Bank of Egypt. That the Caesar National Reserve Bank of Leontopolis, that's their branch office right there. I may be wrong. That other courtyard up there, that was where all the really secret business of the Caesars went on, was in that upper red courtyard right there. That's where they had their big picnics for the big wahoos. And then they had the family stuff, and the semi-public stuff was in this one to the far east. The semi-private, the private apartments were here, and then the semi-private, the west wing was where business went on. And look who controls the temple of Castor and Pollux. Oh, here's the point about the twins, and I'll give you a clue about this logo I'm going to show you. When you see these like twin serpents, when you see these like at Göbekli Tepe, there's in every building there's the two main big T's, and it's two guys facing each other with their thumbs in their belts. And a lot of people idiotically assume these are like guards. They're not guards, they're merchants. These are the twins, Castor and Pollux. These are the twins, Romulus and Remus. They're brothers. Of course they're brothers. You can't have a deal between an inferior and a superior. They must be brothers. They must treat each other like brothers. They must be fair with each other. They must be honest with each other. They must be act in good faith with each other like brothers would do. They must be equals. They must be twins. They must not be an elder or a younger. Even though clearly there is one, that's not the point. This is the law of business ethics. Equal value for equal value. Brother to brother, I tell you, this camel is worth 3 guru of barley. Well, brother, I'm telling you that 3 guru of barley amounts to one of these and a fistful of toilet paper. And I'll even throw in some of the real deal. Each side must honestly offer his best. Each side must be honest. And each side must feel as though it's not just that the deal must be equal value for equal value. Each side must leave believing that it was a fair deal. Otherwise, business falls apart. This is the ethics. This is the law of business ethics. Equal value for equal value. They must come together as brothers. There must be a meeting of equal minds. Otherwise, there is no contract. A child cannot sign a contract with an adult. I can sure sign one with the government, according to the government. And the government signs a contract for them as legal guardian. I don't know if you've noticed. Sometimes they're facing each other. Sometimes they're going apart. That's just the international sign of business. It's like Honest John's mink shop. You know, Honest John's hash and eggs. That's what it means. It's just the international symbol for honest business, but that's the conditions for business. You will see it show up in the syndicate logo over and over and over. Are you with me? This is where it all happens. This is the New Jerusalem. As planned by you-know-who. Now, don't at me if there are misspelled words in this map. That's the proximity. To the average Roman, Judea was not 10,000 miles away. It was across the river, like little Tokyo, something like that. Are you with me? You want to get laid? Go to the kingdom of David, okay? Kingdom of Solomon. He'll fix you up. Ask for Herodias. Ask for Salome. Tell her Pilate sent you. Okay? You've been to the city, right? Nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. I just thought it was really interesting that they built this Forum of Nerva to block traffic at the foot of the Palatine Hill on the west side, and that makes a secret corridor to you-know-who land. Even at night. And we know who was handling his money coming in and out of Egypt, and who was allowed to buy bonds and who was not. Are you with me? Does this make a little bit of sense? This has all been bet on the bank in Jerusalem. One way or one thing, one bubble that's hanging out there that nobody is supposed to know about is this yellow one right here. Because Caesar and Sons Enterprises Incorporated depends on the money that comes from Egypt, which is laundered through the bank in Jerusalem. Strike that, reverse it. The money coming out of Egypt is laundered through the bank in Leontopolis, where it is mixed, where it is tempered. The tarot card is, the tarot deck is all about this, as you will see. This is the card known as Temperance. This is where the money skimmed from the Jerusalem temple is mixed with the money skimmed from Egypt and laundered through the bank of Leontopolis, through the Trastevere, through the Forum of Nerva. All the big money deals take place across the road at the Forum of Trajan. That's where the big money goes. But are they making this a closed loop system? Because Caesar has bought a lot of bonds in the whole Caesarea Maritima enterprise. That money must be laundered through the Bank of Leontopolis. Are you with me? Philo of Alexandria, a member of that synagogue, paid a visit to Rome and saw Caligula personally, fluffed it horribly, got Herod Agrippa shoved down his throat instead, or shoved up his nose instead. It is possible that, well, when you read Philo of Alexandria's Embassy to Gaius, which is Caligula, that particular Claudius was Caligula, it's a little it's a little high-handed. There's a hi-hat factor that didn't sit well on Caligula's thorny crown. Be that as it may or may not be, this is apparently who was laundering his money. Well, the oligarch, the head of the synagogue, is laundering Caesar's. He's the richest man in the world. He's richer than Caesar. He's laundering Caesar's money. And they're skimming the money from the Jerusalem temple bank through this system of buying and selling bonds, through these shadow companies and shadow banks. When the temple is, maybe there, if there's a rumor that Jesus was resurrected from the dead in 39 AD and the temple debt is canceled before it's even destroyed, that can cause a financial meltdown. If James's head is not cut off, if people find out that there's no money in the reserves, then in 66 the books are burned. And that's when the Romans do lose their shit. Why would these Romans lose their shit? Why would they lose their shit just because Christ had been risen from the dead in the spirit and not the flesh? Why would they give a rat's ass? If the tax were... This is not funded with gold in a vault. That had disappeared millennia ago. This is all funded with expectations of future tax revenues. If they are canceled effectively, if the people decide that that's what they believe, what are you going to do? Well, see, there's this horror story. Pilate tried that shit when he first got there. When did Pilate first arrive? Was that 11 AD? Pilate attempted to 15. He told them he wanted to put up the standards with the emperor's face. And they didn't like that. And he said, go to Caesarea Maritima to plead your case. And they got there and he was there. And he said, if you don't go home, I'll chop all your fucking heads off. And they all just kneeled down and laid there, fucking all 20,000 people, and it spooked them. It said it spooked them. If word gets out that the debt has been forgiven by hook or by crook. What happens to the yellow spot? What happens to the man in the high castle? What happens to all the yuppies and the nouveau riche down there in the Forum of Nerva? What happens to the money that they have borrowed heavily against that was supposed to be in the Temple of Vesta? It's right across the street. The Romans are invented shady, okay? All of this is on the south side of the Sacred Way. All of this is south of the tracks. The Temple of Saturn, I probably should have made that green, but it's very old. It's very old. And the Temple of Vesta is probably the oldest. They're the ones, they would be, see, it's interesting that it's women and it's female. The Forum of Nerva is dedicated to Minerva, which is the Latin for Hagia Sophia. That is the Forum of Hagia Sophia. Remember that. 300 years from now, when we get around to 600 years from now, from this now, 550 years when we get around to Justinian. Have I wasted enough of your time today? It's only been an hour? It feels like I've been up for 3 hours. Probably feels longer for you guys. See, this is where the Etruscans lived. They built all that. Romans kept all that and the language. And of course the money. I'm Professor Thomas Henry Horan, asking you to please stay plugged in to the Stones Unturned podcast.
He reads everything.
First he takes a nap, then he reads everything. Thanks, guys. See you later. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. Oh, you know what? Let's check the price of oil. I'm just curious. It's up a tickle. No, it's down. Price of oil is down. All right. Keep watching the skis and remember, it is all about the money. I'm looking for the... There we go.